She said, "It's not you, it's me." I smiled and said, "You're right." I didn't argue, didn't beg, I just let her go. A month later, she found out what it really feels like when someone moves on without warning. She said it so softly, I almost didn't hear her. We were sitting across from each other in that small corner cafe, the one that always smelled faintly of roasted beans and cinnamon, the one where the window beside our table always fogged up from the heat inside. She looked down when she said it, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like she needed something warm to hold on to. "It's not you," she whispered. "It's me." Before the story begins, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a twist. I remember how those words just hung there, weightless but heavy, like smoke that refuses to disappear. For a second, everything inside me went quiet. The background chatter, the clinking of mugs, the faint jazz playing from the speaker overhead, all of it seemed to fade until all I could hear was my own breathing and the tiny tremor in hers. I smiled. Not out of courage, not even out of calm. It was one of those reflexive smiles people wear when they're trying to stay composed while their world subtly shifts out of orbit. "You're right," I said. My voice surprised even me. It came out steady, certain. She looked up then, her eyes glistening, searching my face for something. Maybe anger, maybe confusion, maybe hope that I'd ask her to stay. But I didn't. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't ask for another chance. I just sat there for a few seconds, studying her, the way she bit her bottom lip, the way her hair kept falling in front of her face, the way she looked almost relieved and terrified at the same time. I took a sip of my coffee, even though it had gone cold, and nodded once more before I stood. "Take care of yourself," I said quietly, and then I left. The air outside was colder than I expected. Evening had settled into the city, wrapping everything in that dull amber glow from streetlights that made the pavement shimmer faintly after the rain. I walked without a destination, my breath visible in the cold, my hands shoved into my coat pockets. Somewhere behind me, I imagined her still sitting there, realizing I wasn't coming back to argue or make her feel guilty. By the time I reached the river, the wind had picked up. I leaned against the railing and stared down at the water, dark and moving slow. It was strange. I didn't feel anger or heartbreak or even sadness, just an emptiness that didn't hurt yet. But I knew it would later. Emptiness always catches up. I thought about calling someone, maybe Daniel, my closest friend, but I didn't. I didn't want to explain, didn't want the sympathy. I wanted silence, wanted to sit in that moment where everything felt weightless. People walked past me in small groups, laughter trailing behind them like ghosts. I stayed until the cold began to sting my fingertips. Then I went home. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it, quiet, half lit by the small lamp near the couch. Her jacket was still hanging on the back of the chair. Her book, the one she never finished, lay on the table beside a mug with a ring of dried tea at the bottom. I didn't touch any of it. I went straight to the bedroom, undressed, and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. The city murmured faintly outside. Cars, distant sirens, footsteps echoing through alleyways. I closed my eyes and waited for the pain to hit. It didn't. Not that night. But the dream started almost immediately. The first one was simple. I was walking through that same cafe, only it was empty, the lights flickering. Her coffee cup sat on the table, half full, steam still rising from it even though she was gone. I called her name, but it echoed like I was shouting into an empty cathedral. Then the lights went out. I woke up sweating, heart pounding. For the next few days, I moved through life like I was underwater. Work blurred by in fragments, faces, phone calls, meetings. People asked how I was doing, and I told them I was fine. They believed me, or at least pretended to. I didn't check her social media, didn't text her. I erased her number from my phone, not because I wanted to forget it, but because I already knew I wouldn't need it again. There's a strange peace in letting go without resistance. It's like standing still while the storm moves past you. You hear it rage, feel the pressure shift, but you don't move. Eventually, it fades. A month passed like that. Then one morning, I woke up to find a text from an unknown number. It said, "Do you ever think about me?" For a long time, I just stared at it. My chest didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. I knew it was her. I didn't delete it right away. I just let it sit there on the screen, glowing faintly in the morning light seeping through the blinds. After a while, I locked my phone and went to make coffee. That day, everything seemed sharper. The colors outside my window, the sound of traffic below, the way sunlight hit the framed photos on my shelf. One of those photos was of us, taken last winter during a trip to the mountains. I remember the cold that bit our faces, how she had laughed as we tried to take a picture in the snow. I didn't feel that memory sting anymore. It just felt distant, like something that had happened to someone else. I didn't reply to her message. Not that day, not the next. Then a week later, I saw her. It was a Thursday evening, and I was meeting Daniel at a bar downtown. The place was loud, packed with people, the air thick with perfume, sweat, and cheap whiskey. I had just ordered a drink when I noticed her near the door, standing with someone. He was taller, well-dressed, with that careless charm she used to admire in others. She was laughing, but it wasn't the same laugh I remembered. It was forced, slightly too loud, as if she was trying to convince herself she was happy. For a second, her eyes flicked toward me. The moment froze. She stopped laughing. I raised my glass slightly in acknowledgement, a small, polite gesture. Then I turned back to Daniel. I didn't look again, but I could feel her watching me. The air between us felt heavier, like gravity had increased just enough to pull at something invisible. When I finally glanced back, she was gone. That night, I got another text. I saw you tonight. I didn't respond. 2 days later, can we talk? I stared at the message for a while. I almost typed something, maybe what for, but then I deleted it and put the phone face down. 3 more days passed before she called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third call, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. Her voice was softer than I remembered. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied. There was silence. I could hear her breathing, faintly. I didn't expect you to answer. I didn't expect you to keep calling," I said. Another pause. Then, "I've been thinking about you." I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on the dark window. My reflection looked distant, detached. "Why?" "I don't know. I thought I was doing okay. I thought I'd moved on." Her voice cracked slightly. "But then I saw you the other night, and it just reminded you what you threw away?" I finished for her. She didn't speak for a long moment. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said finally. "I know. I just needed to figure things out. You said that before." "Yeah." A faint laugh. "And you didn't even fight me. You just left." "That's what you wanted," she sighed. "Maybe I wanted you to stop me." I let that hang there. The truth was, I could have. I could have begged, argued, promised to change, but something inside me had known that if she wanted to leave, she already had. Words wouldn't have changed that. "I guess you found out what it feels like," I said quietly. She didn't reply. We stayed on the line for a while, both listening to the sound of each other's silence. Then she said, "Can we meet, just to talk?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep the distance, to let her sit with whatever realization she was having. But curiosity, it always wins eventually. "Tomorrow," I said. "Same cafe." When I hung up, I felt that old restlessness stir in my chest. Not hope, not regret, just curiosity mixed with something darker. That night, I didn't sleep. The wind rattled the windows, and I lay there staring into the dark, thinking about what I'd say when I saw her again. Morning came slow, gray light spilling into the room like diluted ink. I showered, dressed simply, black shirt, jeans jacket, and walked the familiar path to the cafe. The air smelled like rain. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at the same table, the same corner. Her hair was tied back this time, and there were faint shadows under her eyes. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," she said softly. I nodded, sitting down across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The waiter came, took our orders, left. Then she leaned forward, her fingers fidgeting with the cup in front of her. "I miss you," she said. I watched her. "Do you?" She nodded quickly, eyes glistening. "I made a mistake. I thought I needed space. I thought I needed to find myself. But all I found was how empty things feel without you." There was sincerity in her voice, but also a strange tension underneath. Something rehearsed. "Did he leave you?" I asked quietly. She froze. "What?" "The guy you were with the other night." Her lips parted slightly. "It's not about him." "Then what is it about?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the window, her reflection merging with the street beyond. When she turned back, her expression had softened. "You moved on so easily. How did you do that?" "I didn't," I said. "I just accepted it." Her eyes searched mine, looking for something: anger, affection, maybe even forgiveness. But I wasn't sure what she saw there. "Can we start over?" she whispered. I took a slow breath. The cafe around us seemed to dim, voices fading into a low hum. For a moment, it felt like we were back at the beginning again. Two people, coffee between them, uncertain about what comes next. But something in me had changed. "I don't think we can," I said. "You're remembering what you lost, not who I was." Her eyes widened slightly, like she wasn't expecting that. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the table. A name flashed across the screen. I caught it before she turned it over. It was his name. Her face went pale, and in that instant, everything about the conversation, the sudden regret, the carefully chosen words, clicked into place. I smiled faintly. "You should answer that." She didn't move. Outside, the rain started again. Soft at first, then heavier, tapping against the window like restless fingers. She finally looked up, and for the first time since I'd known her, she didn't have anything to say. I finished my coffee, stood, and said quietly, "Goodbye for real this time." As I walked out into the rain, I didn't look back. But part of me knew this wasn't the end of it. Not yet. It started small. A single message, sent late at night, a few days after that final meeting. No greeting, no signature, just 2 words: "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a while, the blue light from my phone painting my room in that hollow, sleepless glow. The clock read 2:47 a.m. The city outside was mostly asleep. No sirens, no laughter from the bars, just the sound of the wind brushing past my window. I didn't reply. I turned the phone face down and lay back, watching the shadows shift across the ceiling. But something about that message stuck with me. Not because of the words themselves. Apologies had become meaningless by then, but because of the timing. She was never the kind of person who stayed awake that late. Not unless something was wrong. The next morning, I told myself not to think about it. I went about my day, worked, came home, ate dinner in silence. But when I checked my phone that evening, there were 3 more messages. "You were right. I can't stop thinking about you. He's not who I thought he was." That last one lingered in my head. I read it again and again, hearing the unease between the words. It wasn't self-pity this time. It was fear. I typed out a reply, "Are you okay?" But before I could send it, I stopped. Something inside me whispered, "Don't get pulled back in." So I deleted the text, turned off my phone. That night, I dreamed again. The cafe was back, but the lights were flickering faster now, the shadows deeper. Her cup was there on the table, just like before. But this time, there was something written on the rim in faint black ink. I leaned closer. The words said, "Don't let him in." When I woke, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I sat up, the dream still clinging to me like static. "Don't let him in." The words wouldn't leave my head. 2 days later, Daniel dropped by. He was the only one who still checked in without asking questions. He brought beer, as usual, and that careless grin that made it hard to tell if he was serious about anything. "You've been quiet lately," he said, collapsing onto my couch. "I've been working." He raised an eyebrow. "Right. You've also been staring at that phone like it owes you money." I smirked, took a sip from my bottle. "She's been messaging me." Daniel leaned forward. "Oh? The 'it's not you, it's me' girl?" "Yeah, what does she want now?" I hesitated. "I don't know. She says she made a mistake, that the guy she left me for isn't what she thought." Daniel made a low whistle. "That's how it goes, man. The fantasy fades, reality kicks in, and suddenly you're the one that got away." I didn't respond. My mind was still tangled in that dream, those words. "She's been saying weird stuff too," I said finally. "Like, she's scared of him." Daniel frowned. "Scared? Of what?" "She didn't say." He leaned back, thoughtful. "Maybe it's guilt, or maybe she's trying to pull you back in. Either way, don't bite. You did the hard part already, walking away." I nodded, but something in me wasn't convinced. There had been a tremor in her voice that last time we spoke. It wasn't guilt, it was something colder. That night, she called again. I didn't answer the first ring. On the second, I hesitated. By the third, something in her persistence made me pick up. Her voice came through shaky, almost whispering. I didn't know who else to call. "What's going on?" I asked. There was silence, except for the faint hum of traffic wherever she was. Then, "He's not who he says he is." "What do you mean?" "I can't explain it on the phone. Can we meet?" I rubbed my forehead, torn between reason and curiosity. "You think that's a good idea?" I just need someone to talk to, please. That word, please, it wasn't desperate, it was frightened. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a park on the edge of town, where the trees bent low and the air smelled like wet earth. It was already dark when I arrived. She was sitting on a bench near the pond, her coat wrapped tight, eyes darting around like she was expecting someone to appear. "Hey," I said softly, approaching. She looked up, and for a moment I barely recognized her. She looked thinner, her face pale, eyes tired. "Thanks for coming." "What's going on, Anna?" She hesitated before answering. "The man you saw me with, he's not." She stopped, swallowed hard. "I thought I knew him, but there's something off about him. He's everywhere. He shows up at places I don't tell him I'm going to. He goes through my phone. He says things I never told him." I frowned. "Like what?" "Things about us," she whispered. "Things only you would know." The hairs on my arms stood up. "What are you talking about?" She shook her head, clutching her hands together. "He knew the name of that song you played for me the night we first kissed. He knew about the ring you almost bought me last year. He even—" She stopped. "What?" Her voice dropped. "He said the exact words you said to me the night we broke up. You're right." The same tone, the same look. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. "That doesn't make any sense." "I know." Her eyes darted past me suddenly, and she flinched. I turned, but there was nothing there, just the wind rustling through the trees. "I think he's been following me," she whispered. "I keep seeing someone outside my apartment. At first, I thought it was him, but I don't know anymore." A cold unease crept down my spine. "You should go to the police." "I tried," she said. "They think I'm paranoid. They said there's no evidence." She stood up, pacing now. "I just wanted to warn you, in case he tries to." Her words were cut off by the sound of a car engine nearby. Headlights swept across the park, illuminating her face in stark white light. She froze. "That's his car," she whispered. I turned. A black sedan idled at the edge of the lot, engine humming softly. I couldn't see the driver. The windows were tinted too dark. "Let's go," I said quickly, grabbing her arm. We walked fast toward my car, her hand trembling in mine. I didn't look back until we were inside and driving. She was silent the entire ride, staring out the window, her breath fogging the glass. When I finally dropped her at a friend's place across town, she turned to me and said, "Be careful. He's not what he seems." Then she was gone. I drove home in silence, the wipers slicing through the drizzle. My thoughts were tangled, half disbelief, half dread. Who was this guy? How did he know those details? When I got home, I checked my front door twice before locking it. The apartment was dark and still, but something felt off. I noticed it immediately, the faint smell of her perfume, the one she used to wear in the spring. I hadn't smelled it since she left. Then I saw the mug on my table, the one she always used, only it wasn't where I left it. And inside it, resting neatly at the bottom, was a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly, my hands cold. In small, neat handwriting it said, "You shouldn't have come back." I stared at it for a long time, every nerve in my body alive with confusion. Then I checked the locks again, every window, every shadow. That night, I barely slept. Over the next few days, things got stranger. My phone would buzz with unknown numbers. When I answered, there was only breathing on the other end. Once, just before the line cut off, a voice whispered, "You're right." I stopped going out after dark, started checking my car twice before driving. I told myself it was coincidence, paranoia, that she was unstable and her fear was contagious. But deep down, I felt something I hadn't in years, the creeping sense that I was being watched. Then, one evening, I came home to find my front door ajar. My pulse spiked. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting to see movement inside. The apartment was dim, the air still. Nothing looked disturbed, not at first. Then I noticed the photo on the shelf, the one of me and Anna in the snow. The glass was cracked clean through the middle, and behind it, written faintly on the wall in black marker, were two words, "It's me." I didn't move for a long time. The words "It's me" stared back from the wall, thin and uneven, like they'd been written by a trembling hand. The marker strokes looked fresh. I could still smell the sharp, chemical scent. I touched the edge of the cracked photo frame, the glass cold under my fingertips, and my reflection split down the middle. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded distant, muffled, like it was coming from another room. I took a slow step back and scanned every corner, every shadow. Nothing looked disturbed, but everything felt wrong, like someone had been here and carefully put the world back exactly the way I'd left it. I should have called the police. That would have been the sane thing to do. But some part of me hesitated, that old, stubborn part that didn't want to sound paranoid. What would I even say? That my ex's new boyfriend, or maybe my ex herself, had broken in and left a message on my wall? They'd file a report, pat me on the shoulder, and tell me to get some sleep. So I didn't call. I sat on the couch with the lights off and listened to the silence until I wasn't sure if it was silence at all. There was a faint rhythm somewhere behind it, something like breathing, so soft I couldn't tell if it was inside the room or inside my head. When dawn finally came, I went to work as if nothing had happened. But everything looked different. The fluorescent lights harsher, people's voices pitched strangely high. I caught myself staring at my reflection in the elevator door. My eyes looked tired, older. For a moment I thought I saw movement behind me in the reflection, a shadow that didn't belong, but when I turned, there was no one there. By noon, I'd convinced myself it was exhaustion, lack of sleep, stress, imagination, until I opened my desk drawer. Inside, beneath a stack of papers, was the same folded note I'd found in the mug. You shouldn't have come back. I froze, my pulse hammering. I hadn't brought that note with me. I was sure of it. I'd thrown it away. I shut the drawer and tried to breathe, to think. Someone was playing a game. Maybe Anna, maybe that man, maybe both. But the thought that scared me most wasn't that someone had broken in again. It was the small, flickering possibility that I'd done it myself and couldn't remember. That night, I started writing everything down. Times, places, what I saw, what I felt. A log, I told myself, to keep things straight. But the act of writing didn't help. It only made the gaps stand out more clearly, the half hours I couldn't account for, the moments when I'd looked up from something and realized I didn't remember starting it. The dreams got worse. I was in my apartment, sitting on the couch, but I wasn't alone. Someone was standing behind me. I couldn't see his face, only the outline. A tall figure, shoulders slightly hunched, breathing slow and steady. When I tried to turn, my body wouldn't move. Then a hand rested lightly on my shoulder, and a voice whispered in my ear, "It's not you. It's me." I woke gasping, the echo of that whisper still in the room. I switched on every light, checked every lock again. Nothing. Yet, when I looked at the window, I thought I saw a faint shape reflected in the glass, standing just behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. By the third night, I couldn't tell if I was dreaming at all. Anna called again 2 days later. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me needed to hear her voice, to know she was still real. "You sound tired," she said. "I am. You saw it, didn't you?" I hesitated. Saw what? Her breathing quickened on the line. The writing. My throat went dry. "How do you know about that?" "I saw it too," she said. "In my place. Same words." The silence between us stretched thin. I could hear the tremor in her voice, the edge of panic she was trying to hide. "He's not real," she whispered. "He's something else. I don't know how to explain it, but he's wearing your face." My grip tightened on the phone. "Anna, I have to go," she said abruptly. "If he finds out I called." The line went dead. I sat there listening to the dial tone, then set the phone down carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter the fragile sense of order left in my world. That night, the apartment felt smaller. Every sound seemed amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the radiator, the faint ticking of the clock. I kept the TV on just for the noise, but the voices on the screen blurred into whispers I couldn't understand. Around midnight, the lights flickered, once, twice, then went out completely. I stood there in the dark, the air thick with silence. Somewhere near the kitchen, something shifted, a soft scrape, like fabric against the wall. I froze. "Anna?" I said, even though I knew it wasn't her. No answer. I took a slow step forward, the floor groaning beneath me. My eyes began to adjust. Faint light from the street spilled through the blinds, painting thin bars across the floor. That's when I saw it, the reflection in the glass of the balcony door. A silhouette, tall, motionless, standing behind me. My heart stopped. I turned. Nothing. The room was empty. When I looked back at the glass, the reflection was gone. I didn't sleep at all after that. I sat by the window until sunrise, the city's first light bleeding over the rooftops like a promise I couldn't trust. The next day, I tried to find Anna. Her number went straight to voicemail. Her apartment building had changed the access code. The doorman said she'd moved out a week ago. No forwarding address, no contact. Gone. For the next several days, everything blurred. Work, sleep, food, it all lost meaning, but the feeling of being watched never left. I'd catch glimpses, a shadow slipping around a corner, a face in the crowd that looked almost like mine. Once, on the train, I saw a man standing at the far end of the car, wearing my coat. When he turned his head slightly, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just the coat, it was my face. Then the train stopped, the doors opened, and he was gone. That was when I knew something inside me had cracked. Either I was losing my mind or the world was. I went home and tore the apartment apart, checking every drawer, every mirror, every photo, and that's when I found it. A second phone I didn't remember owning, hidden in the back of the closet, battery dead. I charged it, hands shaking. When it powered on, the lock screen image was a photo of me, sleeping, taken from the foot of my bed. The call log was empty except for one number, saved under a single letter. I called it. The phone on my kitchen counter started ringing. I stared at it, frozen, as the vibration rattled against the countertop. Then it stopped. A moment later, a new message appeared on the screen of the mystery phone. Stop looking. I dropped both phones onto the table and backed away until I hit the wall. My breath came short, sharp, almost painful. I must have dozed off sitting there, because when I opened my eyes, the apartment was darker. The light outside gone. I checked the time, 3:12 a.m., and there, on the wall opposite me, written in fresh black marker, was a new line under the old one. It's not me either. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It was faint, metallic, like the scent that lingers on your hands after touching coins. It hung in the air of my apartment, impossible to place. I walked slowly from room to room, half expecting to see new words scrawled somewhere, but the walls were clean. Too clean, as if someone had scrubbed them. I didn't remember cleaning. The clock on the wall said 7 a.m., though I couldn't recall the night before at all. I must have slept, yet my body felt bruised, my head heavy, like I'd been somewhere else entirely. I opened my journal, the one I'd been keeping to track the strange events, and froze. The last entry wasn't mine. The handwriting looked like mine, but tighter, rushed, as if written in panic. It said, "Stop writing. He reads this too." For a long time I just stared at it. The city outside was waking up. Car horns, the low rumble of buses, snippets of conversation through open windows. It all sounded muffled, distant. I closed the notebook, set it on the counter, and forced myself to leave the apartment. The street felt different in daylight. Everything brighter, louder, sharper. But every reflective surface I passed, car windows, storefront glass, seemed to bend slightly, like the reflections were half a second behind reality. Once as I crossed the street, I saw my reflection turn its head before I did. I told myself it was fatigue, maybe some kind of stress-induced dissociation. People break like that sometimes, slowly, quietly. I just needed rest, normalcy, routine. So I went to the office. But when I got there, people looked at me strangely. The receptionist gave a stiff smile and said, "Back again already?" "Again?" I asked. She blinked, confused. "You were here last night. Said you left something." I didn't respond. I walked past her, down the hall to my cubicle. My chair was turned slightly, papers scattered, and there, sitting neatly on the keyboard, was a coffee cup. The same kind they served at that cafe. On the rim, faintly written in marker, was a single word, "Hi." I backed away so fast my chair hit the wall. A coworker glanced over, eyebrows raised. I mumbled something about feeling sick and left. Outside, I sat in my car for nearly 10 minutes before realizing my hands were shaking. When I finally started the engine, the radio came on mid-song. Only it wasn't music. It was a voice. My voice. "Don't let him in." The radio fizzed, cut to static, then silence. I slammed it off and sat there breathing hard, trying to anchor myself. Then I looked up. Across the street near the cafe, someone was standing perfectly still. Same height, same build, same clothes. Me. He was watching. The second I moved, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. I don't remember driving home. I just remember the sky darkening, the city lights bleeding across the windshield. My reflection in the glass looked pale, hollow-eyed, almost unfamiliar. When I reached my apartment, the door was unlocked again. Inside, everything looked untouched, except for the mirror in the hallway. A message had been written across it with my own marker pen. "We're almost done." Something in me snapped then. Not fear exactly, but a cold clarity. Whoever, or whatever. This was wanted me confused, doubting my own reality. Maybe that was the point. I decided to test it. I set up my phone on the table, camera pointed at the front door, recording. If someone came in, I'd see it. I left the apartment for an hour, walked aimlessly through the park until the cold air bit at my face, then came back. Everything was the same. Door closed, lights off. I picked up the phone, heart pounding, and played the recording. The video showed the empty apartment. Timestamp running. Nothing moved for 20 minutes. Then, at exactly 10:34 p.m., the screen flickered, just once, and suddenly there was someone sitting on my couch. Me. He looked up at the camera, smiled faintly, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then the image glitched again, and the couch was empty. I rewound it 3 times. Same thing. When I looked back at the couch, the cushions were slightly indented as if someone had just been sitting there. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on, every curtain open, sitting at the kitchen table staring at my reflection in the window until the sun rose. By morning, I'd made a decision. I had to find Anna again. She was the only person who'd seen what I'd seen, who might understand. It took all day of calling old numbers, messaging mutual friends. Finally, one of them gave me an address outside the city, an old townhouse she'd supposedly rented after moving out. I drove there at dusk, the sky painted in streaks of fading gold. The street was narrow and quiet, lined with tall maples that whispered in the wind. Her building was old brick, ivy creeping up one side. A single light burned behind a curtain on the second floor. I knocked. No answer. I tried again. The door creaked open on its own. Inside smelled like dust and something faintly sweet. Flowers long dead. "Anna?" I called. No reply. The only sound was the low hum of a refrigerator somewhere deeper in the apartment. I stepped inside. The floorboards complained under my shoes. Her living room was cluttered with boxes, half unpacked. A few photos lay scattered on the table. Some of her, some of us. One photo stopped me cold. It showed me standing outside my own apartment building, taken from across the street. The next photo was the same image, but my head was turned toward the camera, as if I'd known I was being watched. A faint noise came from the bedroom. A whisper. Maybe my name. I moved slowly toward it. The door was ajar, light spilling through the crack. I pushed it open. The room was empty. The window open, curtains billowing. On the bed lay her phone, screen glowing. A video was playing. It was me, sitting on my couch, speaking softly into the camera. Only I didn't remember recording it. "You can stop running now," the version of me said. His tone was calm, almost kind. "He's not real. I'm not real. You made us." The video ended. My reflection in the dark window shifted. It was smiling. The reflection smiled, and then it blinked out of sync with me. I stumbled back, my pulse thundering in my ears. For a long moment I just stood there, staring at that faint image in the glass, willing it to move the same way I did. But it didn't. When I raised my hand, it hesitated, then followed a second too late, as though deciding whether to imitate me at all. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Behind me, the door creaked, a slow, dragging sound, and somewhere, faintly, I thought I heard the soft click of a phone camera. "Anna?" I called, my voice breaking the silence. No answer. The reflection tilted its head, studying me like a stranger, and then softly it spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." My chest tightened, my mouth went dry. "What are you?" It smiled again. "You already know." Something flickered behind me, a shape, a shadow, then nothing. I turned, heart hammering, scanning the room, the bed, the window, the corner where the light didn't quite reach, empty. When I faced the glass again, the reflection was gone, but on the bed, next to Anna's phone, there was a folder I hadn't noticed before. My name, written across the cover in thin black ink. I hesitated, then picked it up. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, each one showing me in different places. At the cafe, in my apartment, at work, even sleeping. Some were taken from angles that shouldn't have been possible. One, I realized with a chill, was the exact frame from the recording I'd made of my living room. The last photo was different. It showed Anna sitting in a chair, eyes wide open, staring at something out of frame. On the back, in her handwriting, was a single line, "He looks just like you." I dropped the folder and backed toward the door. That was when I heard footsteps, slow, measured, descending from the upper floor. I froze. They grew louder. Then a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. It was me. Same clothes, same face, same hollow exhaustion in the eyes. He moved with a calm certainty, descending each step without hesitation, like he'd done it before. When he reached the bottom, he stopped a few feet away and looked at me with quiet amusement. "You've been busy," he said. His voice was mine, but smoother, more deliberate. "Writing things down, looking for patterns, pretending there's still a difference between us." "This isn't real," I whispered. "You're not real." He smiled. "That's what Anna said too." "Where is she?" He tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "Gone. She couldn't tell the difference anymore." My back hit the wall. I could feel my pulse in every part of my body. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you made me," he said simply. "You wanted to let go, remember? You smiled when she said it was over. You thought you could erase the part of yourself that still cared. So you buried me, but you can't bury what you don't understand. I don't believe you." He took a step closer. The air seemed to vibrate between us, charged and heavy. "You do. You just don't want to admit it. All those gaps in memory, those nights you can't explain, who do you think was living them?" My head spun. "No, You think you've been watched," he continued softly. "But you've been watching. You think you've been haunted, but you're the ghost. You've been living two lives, one that mourns her and one that can't forgive her. I'm the second one." He stopped just short of me, close enough that I could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the same one I had from years ago. "You wanted to move on without warning," he said, voice low. "So you did. You left her behind, left yourself behind, and I was what remained, the part that couldn't let go." My vision blurred. I could feel the weight of every sleepless night pressing down on me. "If that's true, then what happens now?" He smiled, gentle, almost pitying. "Now you remember." Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and everything went dark. When they came back on, he was gone. The apartment was silent again, empty except for the faint echo of my own breathing. On the bed, Anna's phone buzzed, screen lighting up with a new message. My name, no number, just a single word. "Remember." I opened the folder again, hands trembling, and noticed something I hadn't before. A thin envelope tucked into the back. Inside was a letter written in my handwriting, dated a month earlier. If you're reading this, it means you've finally started to see it. The mind can split when pushed too far. Grief, guilt, loss. I didn't want to be him anymore, the man she left. So I made someone else. Someone who could pretend it didn't hurt. But he didn't stop where I did. He kept going. If you're reading this, you are him now. The room tilted. My breath caught. I dropped the letter, staring at the words as if they could rearrange themselves into something else. Outside, the sky had deepened to violet. The streetlights flickered on one by one. I walked to the mirror by the door, the one I'd avoided since all this began, and stared into it. For a moment, it was just me. Then my reflection smiled, the same faint, knowing smile, and whispered, "You're right." The lights went out. When they came back, the reflection was gone. Only I wasn't sure which side of the glass I was standing on anymore. The next morning, they found an empty apartment. No signs of struggle. 2 phones on the counter, both identical, both unlocked, the same set of fingerprints on everything. The neighbors said they hadn't seen anyone in weeks, though one woman swore she heard 2 voices arguing through the walls at night. They said the messages stopped after that. The last one, received by an unknown contact, simply read, "It's not you, it's me." And now I ask you, how much of what we remember is truth, and how much is what we need to believe? When we walk away from pain, do we really leave it behind? Or does it find another face to wear, another voice to whisper through when we're alone? If you woke tomorrow and saw yourself across the street, watching, smiling, would you know which version of you was real? Or would you, too, start to wonder which side of the glass you've been standing on all along?